If I wasn't perfect in my own brain, I would go into a full-blown meltdown, and it still wasn't good enough. I still didn't believe I was good enough. Hi everyone, my name is Gigi and welcome back to my channel. Today's video, I'm going to be telling you how I retrained my brain into stop believing what the bullies had taught me to believe. I was bullied so horrifically as a child that my brain actually tried to protect itself by forgetting how bad things truly were. So today I want to tell you how I personally retrained my brain into stop believing what they had told me. Because the effects of bullying doesn't always end once the actual physical bullying ends. For me personally, the effects lasted a lot longer. But here is what I did to change it. I am always so surprised when I see so many people doing self-help and self-development content and they don't talk about one of the most common things, bullying. Around 1 in 3 people have experienced bullying in their lifetime. And victims of bullying are significantly more likely to develop mental disorders like anxiety and depression. And a lot of the time have issues with self-image and self-confidence. So if you struggle with confidence issues and anxiety right now, it could be the exact result of bullying in your past. It is in our human nature to want to be accepted by other people. So when we're not, when we're judged for simply living, our brains see it as rejection. And rejection is a threat. I was bullied from the age of 4 until around 11 years old, which are extremely important years of your life when you are developing your own identity and figuring out who you are. And the weird thing about it is, I actually don't remember that much about it. All I know is what my parents have told me, which is that I was verbally and physically abused by a lot of the people within my classes, and even sometimes from the teachers within my school. My needs were incredibly misunderstood. I was judged for simply being who I was and what I liked. And because of that, I felt a lot of shame just being who I was. And when you're a child, you don't have a logical way of thinking. If someone tells you something, you just believe it to be a fact. So if every day I went to school and got called the same things over and over again, ugly, freak, stupid, that I was below everyone else, and on top of that I was being physically hurt by people, publicly shamed in front of my classes, what do you think that's going to teach little young me? What do you think that's going to teach little young you? When things become too overwhelming for your brain to process, when your brain can't figure out why something is happening, but it sees it as a threat, sometimes, as a coping mechanism, your brain thinks the only true way of you continuing through life without suffering is to completely forget altogether, to block this memory out. This means you won't be able to recall it. You'll try and think back to that period of your life, but you're hitting blanks. You can remember little stuff, but not really what truly happened. That is your brain protecting itself. But just because you can't remember exactly what happened doesn't mean it isn't affecting you still. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, especially if you were bullied when your personality was forming, your idea of self-identity was forming. Those effects people have had on you are going to carry forward into who you are. Because you might not remember, but your nervous system definitely does. And the brain loves following patterns. So you might not know why you're thinking a certain way, but you will continue to do it because that's what your brain knows how to do. Now things like social anxiety, depression, perfectionism, overthinking, self-hatred are all linked to bullying. It's the exact long-lasting effects that I was referencing before. You might no longer be being bullied, but the effects that the bullying has had on you, what it has taught you about yourself, what the bullies wanted you to think is now already up here. The patterns have already been made. So it could be 10 years, 20 years later, and you're still believing what they taught you. This is because you were torn apart for everything. You were judged for liking what you liked, talking how you talked, walking how you walked. So you're going to become hyper aware of everything that you do and believe people are judging you just for those things. For me, this looked like developing extreme social anxiety to the point that I was scared to leave the house. I struggled to make friends because truly I believed nobody wanted to be friends with someone like me. I believed exactly what my bullies wanted me to believe, and because of that, I viewed myself as lesser of a person than everyone else. I viewed myself as ugly. I viewed myself as not perfect. And because of that, I developed these habits. These things I had to tick off every single day before I left the house, before I went into the big scary world outside. If I wasn't perfect in my own brain, if I didn't look perfect, if my hair wasn't perfect, if my outfit wasn't perfect, if my makeup wasn't perfect, I would go into a full-blown meltdown. And most of the time, I would not be leaving the house after that. I would stand in front of mirrors for hours and deeply analyze my entire face. Everything about it, every single pore that I had. I became obsessed with appearing to be the perfect person because I believed that was the only way of being accepted. And it still wasn't good enough. I still didn't believe I was good enough. So when I was going through my own self-development journey and I was trying to love myself more, develop myself more, and become the better version of myself, digging into what made me anxious, what made me depressed, what made me feel like this, brought me back to my bullying. That's where it all stemmed from. And sometimes this is what going on the self-development journey is about. Digging into your past and understanding where your triggers come from, where these behaviors were built. And for me, a lot of it came from bullying. From the hours I spent at school feeling like I was being judged every second. From the moments of shame and embarrassment I felt. And I knew if I was to get better, I had to address those issues. And that is exactly what I did. First of all, I looked up what bullying truly was. Why people bully. And I realized it was never about me. A lot of the time, bullying comes from someone who is scared of being those things themselves. If you think about it, why would they pick you apart from something if they aren't aware of it? If they aren't scared for being judged for their style, why are they picking apart yours? Why are they even aware of it? That's when I realized that bullying simply is just a reflection of the person bullying you. What they fear, what they're insecure about, and they're putting that onto you. If that person didn't think of those things within themselves, they would not think of them about you. And that mindset, that switch of thinking, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a freak, to hang on, this isn't about me. They were targeting me for their own insecurities and fears. On top of that, it's very common for bullies to come from households where they receive judgment, where they are judged for the way that they walk, they act, they talk. It's very often a learned behavior to judge others. That's when I realized that bullies are also victims themselves. Does that mean it's an excuse? Absolutely not. Stop bullying people. It's disgusting. It's horrible. But it did help me change my mindset behind the things I believed about myself from them, from that experience. Once I realized that, I needed to unlearn, rewire my brain to not think the way that I was thinking. Now this, I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult and it takes effort every single day, but it is the only way to heal. The first step is exposure. If things make you uncomfortable, like leaving the house, social situations, going places alone, the way to fix that is to start doing it. Now you can start small, you can break it into little tiny steps until you achieve all the steps, but the most important thing is that you expose yourself. The only way to get rid of social anxiety is to be social, is to put yourself out there, continue to talk to people, really become a social person, even if you feel like it's overwhelming, uncomfortable, you're awkward, you just have to get out there. Because again, the brain likes patterns, so if you are going to do something and then talk yourself out of it every single time because you're too scared to do it, your brain is going to recognize that thing as danger. And that thing could be simply leaving the house. But if you actively push yourself closer and closer to achieving that step every single day, to doing that thing, your brain is going to realize it's not dangerous. It's not going to kill you, and you'll become more and more comfortable with it. The next step is to change the way that you talk about yourself. I'm talking every time you look in the mirror and say, I don't like this. This is ugly. I hate the way I look today. Call yourself out. Tell yourself, no, hang on a second. I'm beautiful. I love this part of me. At first, it will feel strange. You might have to physically out loud say it to yourself while looking in the mirror. But I promise you, the more that you do it, the more your brain recognizes that over the negative thoughts. Because again, it's a pattern. You're going from telling yourself negative stuff all the time to telling yourself positive stuff all the time. And when your brain recognizes that positive pattern, it will continue it until it becomes almost autopilot to do it. The third step is to remove triggers. For example, for me, because I had this thing of constantly checking how I looked, constantly checking mirrors, picking myself apart, a lot of the time I had to physically cover up a mirror. At one point in my room, a blanket covered my mirror unless I absolutely had to see myself for whatever reason. Sometimes you really do have to physically remove triggers so you don't fall into the same loop. This can look like removing people from your life that might trigger you, removing yourself from situations or environments that trigger you. Don't get this mixed up with not doing the activity you need to do, because again, exposure is so important. You need to put yourself in situations that make you feel uncomfortable. However, if there are certain things that really specifically trigger you into believing what the bullies told you in the past, to doing actions that re-trigger those negative thoughts about yourself, like my example, then you need to remove them until you're comfortable enough with everything else to bring them back. And lastly, step 4, and this one genuinely I think helped me the most, taking on the nobody cares mindset. This one I think single-handedly cured my social anxiety. Every time I left the house, every time I felt anxious about going somewhere, being somewhere, existing in a space with other people, I told myself, nobody cares. Literally, nobody cares. Nobody cares how I look right now. Nobody cares how I'm breathing right now. Nobody cares how I walk or how I talk. Everyone is so wrapped up in their own lives, they might look at you for a second and forget you the next. Realizing that people think the same way I do, people are so wrapped up in themselves, they're not going to pay attention to the way that you're walking. They might become aware of you for 1 second and think, oh, and then go back to what they were doing and being absorbed with themselves. Nobody has enough time to be so concerned about what strangers are doing. Everyone has their own lives, everyone has their own worries, everyone has their own things going on. Nobody's going to look at you and stare at you and think, wow, she's walking weird. Wow, she's breathing loud. Wow, why is she wearing that? That's so ugly. Literally, nobody cares. Nobody's looking at what you think they are. Nobody's judging you. Literally, nobody cares. So you might not have had control over what happened during when you were being bullied, but now you have full control over what you do with the rest of your life. You have control of how your brain thinks, and you can change it. It takes time, it takes effort, but you can rewrite your own story simply by rewiring the way your brain thinks. That's all from me today. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to comment down below and I will try and get back to every single comment. Don't forget to subscribe and I will see you in the next video. Bye!